then the trade association buys a television ad, and it will say somewhere on there, brought to you by the Chamber of Commerce, but it won't say that it was brought to you by this publicly traded company. And then you say, well, don't we have a Federal Election Commission? And indeed we do. So when the trade association reports at the FEC, it is perfectly legal for them to report, we had a $1 million ad buy, but we had magically 0 donors. And the way that you get away with this is only earmarked donations have to be reported, and no one clever enough to use this system is stupid enough to earmark. So the long story short of all of this is that the public can't tell that a corporation is actually behind a given political ad. And so how could a 28th Amendment change some of this? And it could possibly get all nonprofits out of all politics. It could get some nonprofits out of all politics, or it could get all nonprofits out of some politics, and I guess it could get some nonprofits out of some politics. I don't think it'll actually get all nonprofits out of all politics, in part because nonprofits have very litigious lawyers. I can't see them letting this lie. But one of the equilibriums that might be reached is something that we had for basically a quarter of a century between a case called Massachusetts Citizens for Life and Citizens United. So in that time period, the federal law allowed for ideological nonprofits that were individually funded, had no corporate funds in them, to spend in federal elections as if they were individuals. And I think that kind of equilibrium might happen if the Constitution is amended again. The other thing that might happen is if the amended Constitution is deemed to overrule Bellotti, then you might, for the first time in a very long time, have ballot initiative fights that didn't have corporations in them and didn't have nonprofits, and some people think of nonprofits as like teeny tiny entities. Think again. Pharma is a nonprofit under our law. They have been huge in funding many, like 311 California initiatives in the past 11 years. So you might have an entirely different world if you actually took nonprofits out of the ballot initiative process. So, since it may take some time to get a constitutional amendment, some solutions in the meantime. First, we have this notice problem, which is basically that publicly traded corporations don't have to tell their shareholders or the public that they're spending in politics. So I think that the Securities and Exchange Commission needs to promulgate a rule that requires transparency for all corporate political spending. And the other problem with corporate political spending is from the shareholders' point of view, there's no opportunity to consent. In the same way that union members get to opt in, opt out, there's none of that in the corporate world. So a binding shareholder vote, which they have in the UK, I think is well overdue in the United States. And if you need some encouragement, after reading my depressing Watergate piece, if you need some encouragement, look at this piece. Has the tide turned in favor of disclosure? It actually has. Lower courts after Citizens United have been almost unanimous in upholding disclosure laws. And so the good news, with the exception of the 8th Circuit, is that disclosure is winning in the courts. And so one of the open questions is, will Congress act on this? Another question is, will our federal agencies act on this? And because I'm short on time, I'm going to speed up to what I'm working on, which is the petition at the SEC. So I work with a group called the Corporate Reform Coalition, and we have garnered a record-setting 300,000 comments at the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have broken the record for the number of comments that have ever come in on a single petition. And I think this issue is at the tipping point. And if you are interested in this, please don't be silent. Don't be so depressed about this stuff that you just, give up on the public comment process at the federal agencies. I think you can really make a difference if you put your name in and tell the SEC we need this type of transparency. So the struggle to turn the lights on in our democracy continue. And this is by, oh God. Of course, Microsoft Word is biting me. But if you want to check out the Corporate Reform Coalition, it's just corporatereformcoalition.org.